Okay, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. And do we have any comments from the audience? Is there an audience? Okay, hearing none. Do we have any corrections to the agenda or the consent calendar?
Kelly, I'd propose that we move item 11 before item 10, please.
Actually, we are doing so. That's a very good proposal because it's already done. And I was told that we didn't need to mention that. Okay, anything else? Okay, do we have a motion to adopt the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. President Sheehan,
Yes.
Director Ramsos,
Yes.
Director Peterson,
Yes.
Director Exling.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimous.
Okay. Okay, we have item 6A, and previously Adrian was going to report on this, but Julie Ryan will be presenting for us.
Did we skip item 4,
Oh, maybe.
consent
No,
calendar?
we just voted on that.
Oh, I thought we were just, okay, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello. I'm here today to present to you the results of the bid for the Rocky 1 Waterline project and to request you to authorize or to award that bid and to authorize staff to file CEQA documentation with the state for portions of it. So just to give you a little reminder about what is included in this project, it is the Rocky 1 water line, which replaces all the main line and services within the Rocky Point zone of our water system. It also adds fire hydrants in a fire flow deficient area. It replaces 2 existing pressure reducing valve stations, the Susquehanna PRV and the Price Road PRV. The Price Road PRV is a little interesting because it'll be our first above grade pressure reducing valve station that is standalone out in the field. And we were quite surprised and pleased that we saw a big savings when we bid this above ground station by comparison to our typical vault installed stations. The project also includes 3 small segments of water line spread across our water system. 2 of those are in support of meter installations, McKetty and Stewart Way. And then the third one is a short segment of line down near our Cornelian booster station at Keetac. That's near the Caltrans yard off of Highway 89. And that small piece of line is a hydraulic improvement that will eliminate a dead end in the Christmas Valley zone and will loop the Christmas Valley zone back to the booster station to improve fire flows and water quality out in that area. So that is the bulk of the scope of work under this project. We received 3 bids for the work. Bids were open on March 4th. And the bids ranged from about $2.7 million to about $3.7 million. The low bid was in line with the engineer's estimate for this project and actually came in about 10% under our budget. So that's right in line with what we expected. The third place bidder actually failed to submit their paperwork at the time of bid, and so they were immediately found non-responsive. But we did a full review of the low bid and the second place bid and only found minor deviations in the bid documentation and the disadvantaged business good faith effort. So all in all, these first two were very clean bids. The low bidder, if I haven't mentioned it, was Hain Constructors. And so we have a lot of familiarity working with that company. And we're expecting that this project will get started in right around the beginning of the grading season, beginning of May, and should be completed this season. As for the CEQA categorical exemption, most of the project has actually been submitted to the state to comply with environmental documentation requirements. But the 3 small segments of water line that I mentioned, those were added late in the design of the project. And so before we get started with the work, we need to file for a CADEX for those 3 pieces. So with that, are there any questions?
Questions? Does it seem as though we do? Do we have a motion?
I move to approve.
Would you like me to read it for
I'll
you?
second.
Yep. Yeah, perhaps you should read it, Julie, the staff
Okay.
request.
So I'm requesting that the board waive minor deviations identified for the apparent low bidder, award the project to the lowest responsible bidder, Hain Constructors, in the amount $2,726,518.60, and authorize staff to file a California Environmental Quality Act notice of exemption with the El Dorado County Clerk.
I'll move to approve again.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. President Sheehan,
Yes.
Director Ronsos,
Yes.
Director Peterson,
Yes.
Director Exline.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimous.
Okay. Thank you, Julie. Okay, and we'll move on to 2021 asphalt patching services, and I believe that's Tony Prieto who's going to present for us.
No, good afternoon. This is Chris Stanley, Manager of Field Operations. 2021 asphalt patching services. We went out to bid and we received 4 bids, which ranged from low of $298,625.80 to a high of $521,007. Unfortunately, the lowest bidder, GB General Engineering, did not have the required attachment bid forms required for this position. And so we are asking to go to the second lowest bidder, which is West Coast Paving Incorporated. And the difference between the two is only $313.20.
Yeah.
Happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions for Chris?
I don't really have specific questions to 6B per se. Just curious, and I know we've looked at this in past meetings, but how have you seen this kind of increase just as a result of the additional kind of requirements placed upon us? And I guess where do you see this going as kind of a growth expenditure in the future, if you have any idea?
Well, obviously there's been a tremendous amount of increase. In 2019, we had $137,350 for the patching contract for that year. And with the changes and requirements that were given to us, That year, we ended up paying $302,456. So the increase in the patch sizes that we have to deal with now is quite substantial. And then every year you also have the a little bit of fluctuation between oil prices. When the price of oil goes up, asphalt prices go up. Diesel prices go up. We're charged a little more. Actually, the unit prices for this year are pretty much the same as last year. So that's a good thing. We're not seeing too much of an increase. But at this point, I believe that we're going to be stuck with roughly this kind of price every year at this point. We are working with the county. The county has worked with us a little bit, and we are trying to cut costs whenever we can, but they have certain requirements that we have to follow. But like I said, they do try to work with us a little bit.
Yeah, Chris, didn't the county actually revise the requirements down a little bit from the initial ones that they adopted?
Yes, they work with us if we are on a side street where there's not a lot of traffic. We can kind of narrow, narrow down the patches a little bit. But when it comes to main arteries, Lake Tahoe Boulevard, Pioneer Trail, things like that, they still require us to have a little bit more square footage paved for what they call when you enter the patch and when you leave the patch. The transitions to and from are a little bit longer, and you don't have such an abrupt bump, I guess you'd call it.
Thanks. You can only, do what you can do. So appreciate the update.
Anytime. If there's no other questions, would you like me to read the request?
Yes, please.
Okay. Number one, find low bid for 2021 asphalt patching services project to be non-responsive. Number two, award contract to the lowest responsible bidder, West Coast Paving Incorporated, in the amount of $298,939. And three, authorize staff to allow for changes, size estimates, or repair site additions in the contract not to exceed an additional 10% of the contract price.
I'll make that motion.
I'll make a motion.
And I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. President Sheehan,
Yes.
Director Ramsos,
Yes.
Director Peterson,
Yes.
Director Exline.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, item 6C, Lakeside Park Association Incorporated Water Service Agreement. And that's John.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. So this is a water service agreement with Lakeside Park. And really this issue was brought before the board last summer and essentially agreed to. Gary prepared this agreement at that time, probably 9 months ago or so. And we're just hearing back from Lakeside Park, and they came back with no changes to the agreement. So this is essentially approved as it was by the board last year. So a little more background for the new board members. There's a triangular area bounded by the state line, Lake Tahoe and Lakeside Park. And that was on the attachment. Shane, thanks for preparing this map. Very impressive. No, Shane did not prepare the map, but this is not the greatest quality, but it works for this agreement. Anyway, in this triangular area, some property owners there wanted to get off their wells, and there's some new developments down there, and they wanted to connect to the public water system. So they initially approached the district, and they also talked to Lakeside Park. So this triangular area is actually within our service area, but our distribution system does not go down that far. So it really isn't cost effective for the district to serve those customers, just a handful of customers. And Lakeside is already right there, and their system is already right there, and they're ready to serve. So it just makes sense for Lakeside to serve this small area down by down by the lake. And so this is essentially just an agreement that simply allows Lakeside to serve this specific customer area as shown on the map. So Gary, I'm not sure, Gary had some trouble joining the meeting earlier. Gary, if you're on the line, is there anything you would like to add or clarify? And not hearing any, are there any questions or comments from the board on this item?
Okay, I finally got it in.
Okay, thanks, Gary.
Oh, there's Gary. Okay, go ahead, Gary.
No, I think John summarized it pretty well. It was a way to, accommodate the needs of what normally would have been the district's customers for water service in that triangle area. But I think everyone felt, at least at the time when we reviewed it last and sent them the red line draft, that it was the right thing to do to not require them to pay such a large main extension cost, and it'd be able to let things move forward more quickly for those who wanted to develop their properties in that area. And as John said, we had sent them a Word version redlined with our changes that we thought needed to be made to the agreement. They sent us back a signed PDF of the final document with the redlining merged. We did run a compare with what we sent to Lakeside versus what they sent back, and as John reported, there were no changes made to the agreement. So it incorporates all the revisions that the district requested.
Any other questions?
I do, and maybe it's just the version that's in the board packet, but the surveyor's diagram was not legible there. It was like it printed out funny, and I'm wondering if the actual agreement has a legible version in there.
Yeah, I'd worked with John and Melanie earlier this week, and we have a more legible exhibit, as well as a new counterpart signature page with Kelly's name inserted, and then also a new cover page with the correct date on it. And we'll insert those so that there's no changes other than to make sure that the rest of the information was filled out properly.
And if we could ask Shane to do a cleaner version next time, that'd be terrific.
No, I guess I'm glad that you are. Sorry, meeting. That you're updating the map. That was one of my comments to John prior to the meeting, that kind of in line with Dave. Just it's not legible as is, and I do a better job on that.
Okay, I'll read the requested board action. Approve the water service agreement between South Tahoe Public Utility District and Lakeside Park Association Incorporated in order for Lakeside Park Association Incorporated to provide water service to all of the properties located within a small portion of the district service area, proposed new service area, in quotes.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. President Sheehan,
Yes.
Director Ramsos,
Yes.
Director Peterson,
Yes.
Director Exline.
Yes.
I don't know if I heard, did Chris join us at this point in this meeting?
I was told he would be absent, and I don't think he's on.
Okay, he was
His name on the queue.
Yeah, actually, I am here.
Oh,
I am here. If you guys can hear me.
Chris, did you hear the motion and the details on this? Yes?
No, so I'm going to have to skip that one.
Okay, I will still mark you absent. Okay, we have a unanimous, that motion has a unanimous vote.
Thank you.
And then going forward, Chris is officially with us at this meeting.
That's correct. Yeah, I was just a little late, but I'm here.
Okay, great. That moves us to 6D, the Keller Heavenly Installment Sale Agreement, and that's Paul Hughes.
Yes, thank you. So district staff are seeking approval of a resolution which will authorize execution of an installment sale agreement for a state revolving fund loan for the Keller Heavenly Improvement Project. And we've been actually working on this loan for approximately 2 years, so we're really glad we kind of reached the finish line. But the wait was worth it though, because we did get a fantastic interest rate of 1.2% over 20 years, which creates an annual debt service payment of approximately $265,000. We originally were budgeting about 1.6%, so it was very good news that we got the 1.2. We actually were seeking a term of 30 years for this loan, but the state actually only granted a 20-year term, and it's because our special use permit on the Forest Service property where this project is located, currently the term of that permit is only for 28 years, so they wouldn't approve the 30-year term. But the fact that we got the lower interest rate than we were expecting helped offset some of that annual principal cost. But overall, by eliminating 10 years off the term, we save about $300,000 in interest, so that's a bonus there. So staff is recommending approval of resolution number 3168-21, the installment sale agreement resolution of the Board of Directors of the South Tahoe Public Utility District for the Keller Heavenly Water Systems Improvement Project.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. President Sheehan,
Yes.
Director Cefalu,
Yes.
Director Romsos,
Yes.
Director Peterson,
Yes.
Director Exline.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimous.
Okay, that moves us to 6E, payment of claims. And I will move approval of payment of claims in the amount of $1,021,087.87.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. President Sheehan,
Yes.
Director Cefalu,
Yes.
Director Romsos,
Yes.
Director Peterson,
Yes.
Director Exline.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimous.
Thank you. Okay, standing and ad hoc committee and liaison reports. Does anybody have anything?
I do not.
Nor do I.
Okay, so it appears we'll move on to board member reports, and I have nothing to report. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to share with us?
Not for me.
No.
Okay. How about the El Dorado Water Agency, Dave?
No report.
What the fuck?
Okay, so now it's a little bit different than was originally on the agenda. Evo, are you with us to give us a report?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Maybe a little louder would be good.
Is this a little better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, board members. For my staff report this afternoon, I'd like to provide you a brief update about some of the district groundwater management activities. Since my last update to you at the end of December, it was at the December 17th meeting. These activities generally involved public outreach, preparation of the update to the 2014 groundwater management plan, which after the update will be referred to as the Tahoe South Subbasin Alternative, and recent completion of the 2020 water year annual report, which is a requirement under the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act for the district for our basin. So with regard to public outreach, I think at the last staff update package, or my last staff report package, I provided a copy of the notice. It was a public notice of opportunities to participate in the development of the update to the 2014 Groundwater Management Plan. These were rolled out, and the public notice was posted on the district and the El Dorado Water Agency web pages. It was announced in a district media release. It was also mailed by direct mail or by email to what I refer to as the Tier 1 and Tier 2 stakeholders, as well as the Tier 3 stakeholders, all the stakeholders. The Tier 1 were direct mailers, and those went out to county and city officials, federal water master, and local land use planning agencies. The Tier 2 stakeholders are predominantly groundwater users, and those include private well owners, public water systems, surface water users, and also environmental users of groundwater. And Tier 3 stakeholders is everybody else. So that includes economic development entities, state agencies, environmental groups, tribes, and the interested public. So all that that big effort happened after the new year, and was completed in January. Along with that, we started work on the Tahoe South Subbasin alternative. The hydrologic studies and the existing groundwater management plan were reviewed. The sections were added, or they were identified as far as new information that needs to be added to the groundwater management plan in order to meet new requirements under the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. The existing plan was reorganized to incorporate that new information, and we started on the update to the 2014 Groundwater Management Plan. With regard to the 2020 Water Year Annual Report, this was completed and submitted to the Department of Water Resources on this past Monday, on March 29th. The annual report's been posted on the district's groundwater management plan webpage. And at the next board meeting, I will be providing the presentation that goes along with that report as part of a public hearing for that next meeting at the April 15th meeting. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now. If you'd like more information about any of the items, please feel free to give me a call. My extension is 6204, or you could always send me an email to my district's email address at iberkson@stpud.dst.ca.us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ivo. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Ivo?
I do. Thank you, Ivo. Just a quick one on the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. What are the new requirements that you're asked to include?
Oh, there are a number of them, Shane. Those are described as recommended actions that came out of the staff report on the assessment of the original plan. And so there, as far as new items, again, under the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act that were added, this is work that is being done for the district by the Desert Research Institute. And it involves doing a modeling evaluation. They want us to project out water budgets for our groundwater basin out over a 50-year planning horizon. So DRI has been busy doing that work, updating the groundwater model and doing the work for the projections, they're also required to consider climate change impacts and growth within the basin. So those have all been taken into account. And there was actually a presentation that DRI gave as part of the last stakeholders group workshop on March 25th that went through much of that work. If you'd like, I'd be happy to send you copies of the slides of that presentation if you'd like to see that. There's also another big effort as part of the work that DRI is doing is providing more information as far as interactions of groundwater or surface water groundwater interactions. That's another big item that was identified as part of the assessment as far as, I think, major categories as far as what the groundwater management plan focuses on. First, it's groundwater quality because of our past history with groundwater contamination and impairment of drinking water supply wells within our basin. Another one, big focus of the groundwater management plan is going to be private well users, since there are so many of them within our basin. And then a third big item is going to be interconnected surface waters, since we're so rich in surface water resources, and basically the impact to show if there is any impact, the extent of impacts of groundwater pumping on what is referred to as groundwater dependent ecosystems. So these are habitats that are, as the name kind of suggests, dependent on groundwater. And so those closely correspond with what is mapped as stream environment zones by TRPA. There's a close overlay between the two. So again, I'd be happy to share that information with you, Shane, and I'll make a note to get that to you if you'd like.
I appreciate it, and I apologize for not making the presentation on the 25th. I think I had a conflicting meeting, so but appreciate the high-level overview of the additional requirements. It's helpful.
Thank you, Ivo.
Thank you.
Okay, item 10, General Manager Report.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'll start with a staffing update. In accounting, Erica Franco, one of our customer service reps, she has been selected as our new accounting tech, and she will take over for Debbie Norda, who is retiring. Erica also brings experience from Lake Tahoe Community College as a payroll specialist, along with other extensive bookkeeping experience. And she also participated in our in-house cross-training program with accounting over the past year. And her skills really shine through during that process. So Erica, good job, congratulations. And in other news on staffing, we are currently reviewing applications and scheduling interviews for customer service representative, underground repair water, and lab tech. And with those in process, there actually are, right now, there are no positions currently being advertised. So Liz, I think we're finally catching up. Next item, leadership team meeting, and this is in-house leadership. So last week we held a first ever team meeting with all 13 of our department managers. I'm starting a new process to work on strategic planning, goal setting, achievement, and actually we're starting with the board's 2021 goals that we set forth here earlier this year. And also want to get our department managers together, get them together, let's work together, identify issues and opportunities, solve problems, coordinate department goals, and really empower managers, each of us, all of us, to do our very best collective work. So this is a new process to build an even better, stronger, more focused, and I think cohesive leadership team. And right now we're planning to meet every 2 months, and I think the managers appreciated and valued this new process. COVID-19, continued positive news. both locally and at the district. I did send out an email to the board earlier today. At the district, right now, we have no one out for any reason due to COVID. And many of our staff, about half of our staff, have received at least the first vaccine shot, and many have actually had their second shot as well. So that's all great news. And then looking at the calendar, on April 15th, we plan to move down to our risk level 2.5 action plan. Right now we're at risk level 3. So going down to 2.5, this includes the field crews returning to their 10-hour shifts, and then looking at some transition from remote work to in-office work, likely opening the front office, and we can consider opening up the board meetings as well. So there was a question earlier about this. Kelly, would you like to have some dialogue from the board on this issue?
Yeah, I'd like to hear what everyone else is thinking. I've said it before. I personally would like a little company here in the boardroom, but I also want to be, sensitive to what everybody feels is best for them and for their families. So yeah, I'd like everybody to kind of weigh in on what they're thinking. And I think also what we were talking about was just opening it up to board and staff at first, maybe not having the public come in at first, waiting for that a little bit, So if anybody has any input on that, I'd love to hear it.
No, I think it's good to reopening the board meetings, kind of align with the timeline John just, put forward. I do think it's going to be really hard keeping the public out. They're generally beating down the door before the meeting starts, so keeping them out is going to be a problem. But I think they'll understand for a little bit longer. But no, I think that works for me personally. I thanks to STPUD staff notifying me, I was able to get the first COVID shot. I felt a little shady for about a day. I'm not going to lie to everybody. But was really thankful to do it. I'm getting my second April 18th. I would suggest, though, kind of on an ongoing basis, the ability to call in for both, I would say, board and, to some degree, staff would still be, I think a great option in that, I know some board members are always traveling and, different commitments and various things like that. So having them be able to still participate is great. And for me personally, if I'm ever sick down the road, not having to go because you want to participate and get others sick and just have those options still available seems like a good idea. So that's kind of my 2 cents.
Jane, do you have any?
No, I'm ready to come back. I like kind of the proposal of providing some, flexibility in terms of, how to join the meeting. I personally, I guess I'd be willing to come into the boardroom and, participate. And I'm ready. I'm kind of with Nick. I think I got on the same vaccination train as he, in terms of I got my first shot. My second one's coming on the 18th. So I feel comfortable and willing to do whatever it takes to, contribute.
Dave?
Yeah, I'm happy to come in and start meeting in person. I'm not concerned for my own health at this point. So I guess to the extent that we can do this, within guidelines, that's great. But I have no fears on my own.
Chris, what do you think?
I would say I agree. I have no problem being in person. I do appreciate Nick's comment about people traveling because, as you know, I still do that a lot. And I mean, I'm able to work my schedule around being there in person, which I did in the past, but it's nice to have that option if it's unavailable to me. So I agree. Should leave it open for a while for people to make those choices.
Okay.
Gary, I was going to kind of look for your comment on this. I don't know if the governor will lift the regulation or that we can attend by phone, that if that's lifted, you have to put a notice, post it where that board member is going to be attending from, and they have to post a public notice there also stating where they are for the meeting. So it makes it a little convoluted if that's what's going to happen, if the governor raises that where we can meet by phone or by virtual. Gary, do you have anything to add to that?
Gary, we lost Gary. I think, John, we talked about this a little bit at agenda review, and I can't remember. I think Melanie asked Gary, and I.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, perfect. You can speak for yourself.
Sorry about that. Yeah, that's right. That's right. What Marla described. There has to be a notice posted, and it's got to be an area that's accessible to the public.
And Gary, did you think that perhaps there might be a permanent change on this?
I wouldn't be surprised if at some point there was a change, because I think you're going to see a lot more people, wanting to stay virtual, at least for a while. But I haven't seen anything official yet.
Okay.
As far as I know, there's nothing in works through the legislature.
So if we were to proceed, go ahead, and everybody who wanted to could come in to the boardroom, and then others could still call or join virtually, we'd be okay without having to do the postings for the time being?
Yeah. Yeah, as long as the board members are all present. But if a board member is attending by telephone, then they have to post wherever they're at and have that space accessible to the public under the normal situation.
Unfortunately, normal doesn't apply, and I guess we can cross that bridge when we get to it. So for now, we can do what we're doing, and until somebody tells us otherwise, we can keep doing it the way we're doing it.
That sounds good
Yeah,
to me.
it's going to be a huge rush to get back in that world for a lot. The governor's got a lot on his plate.
Okay, so work with Melanie and Marla and IT, and maybe get that done for the next meeting.
Okay, great.
John, let me confirm, is that going to be for the April 15th meeting, or are you looking out to go with the May 6th meeting?
I mean, I would say April 15th if it's not too much work or too time consuming, but either one.
Okay, I will put down the April 15th meeting. If IT can meet that, we'll let everybody know at that point.
Okay, thanks, Marla.
I'd like to just ask board members and staff if anybody's heard of any efforts by CSDA or Aqua or any of the industry organizations to try to conform the Brown Act to this new reality that we've come to know and love here. Because it seems like that rule that Gary just told us about or reminded us of is pretty outmoded for this the new Zoom world.
Mm-hmm.
I personally haven't heard anything.
I haven't heard anything as an update either.
Well, maybe that's a suggestion that we should make, probably through CSDA. I'm not sure if that's the right forum, but I'm sure there's lots of boards that are having the same discussion, and councils and whatnot, that we're going to live in a guarded world for a while still, and there needs to be some flexibility to have in-person plus Zoom, and not have the restrictions or the requirements of as public access at the site of everybody's Zoom, everybody's living rooms. So perhaps there's an update to the Brown Act in order.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll look into that.
John, we have one more quick thing under COVID still, and that is we need to decide whether or not the board has a desire to continue waiving late fees for this fiscal year. So late fees have been waived for the first 3 quarters of this fiscal year, and the 4th quarter billings are going out this month. And so we just need to we need to understand whether or not the board wishes to continue that through the end of this fiscal year.
Well, just speaking for myself, since the stimulus came out and really covered a lot of people's needs on this end, I don't think it's a good idea to continue this forever. I think the federal government has now covered a lot of these issues, so we should kind of get back to business as usual fiscally. That's my opinion anyway.
Nick, what do you think?
I tend to agree with Dave. You know, I've been saying for a while, I think a lot of some of the problems that we're going to still see here economically are going to be systemic in nature. I also tend to think that, I think I referenced this at the last meeting, that I think it's going to be a booming economy through the summer. You can look at job postings. I was on the trip, the Tahoe Young Professionals website the other day for a job posting thing. And, you know, jobs are out there. I think the economy is booming. And so, you know, again, to Dave's point, I think locally our economic situations may be a bit different than other places nationally. And at some level, we're going to have to get back to business as usual. And it's just a question of when. So if certainly not now, then definitely next quarter.
Jane, what do you think?
Well, I would agree. And is there any way to perhaps roll those folks that are still reeling into the existing care program? You know, if there's, you know, some way to find an avenue, whether it's a business or an individual, or, you know, I don't know if there's any way to do that. And I think it would be, you know, in doing it in that way, you're still providing the opportunity for some relief, but it's just not wide open. And so, yeah, I agree with Dave. We should probably start moving on and getting back to fiscal responsibility mandate, and you know, but still provide some pathway to those folks that are still struggling.
Chris, what do you think?
Would there be oh, sorry.
I agree. I don't have any problem taking it away. We just have to figure out how we're going to go forward with that, with existing unpaid bills that people haven't maybe paid that would apply late fees to all of a sudden after 3 quarters. So, I mean, that's something we got to look at.
You know, I would
Anybody?
be curious too if there was any way to interact with the folks that are still in need of either this or the COVID relief program, and you know, whether it be through a survey or some other mechanism to see what their need is, what the lack is, to start to compiling information, because I do think there's some just need to revisit how we handle our CARES program, or whatever. I apologize, I forget the official name, but this might be a good time to start to look to that. You know, what is needed, how can we retailor what we're doing to better suit the needs of the community, to see why people are still having trouble, and if it's going to be a fix that's going to be achieved in the short term, or if this is again going to be a long-term thing for some folks in our community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think we refer to that as the CAP, the Customer Assistance Program, and we've already kind of started looking at that in-house at ways we can modify that to meet these needs once our COVID relief program ends. And I don't know if we're prepared to bring something back on the 15th, but if so, we will, and keep the board engaged on that. And kind of recognizing, and I've heard these before, about there's you know, an underlying need out there, more systemic in nature, and trying to find the best way to address that.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that, and I'm in agreement too, I think we should probably not continue to waive late fees. So that's what I'm kind of hearing, the consensus. Is that the consensus of everyone? Census of everyone?
I was wondering, to Chris's point, because I don't think anyone addressed it. Would there be any way, you know, if you incurred kind of a non-payment, say for, you know, 3 cycles, now we're going to the 4th, would there be a way to just kind of, I was just trying to think of a mechanism we could look to do to soften the blow for people as they come back in the system, like Chris was concerned about.
So it wouldn't be that those late fees would be cumulative for all 4 quarters. It would only be for the fourth quarter of this fiscal year? Is that what you're meaning?
That's what I'm thinking. So people that are getting back
I
in the
think
game
that's
don't kind of get that big hit.
Is that something that we'd have to talk to Tim about, Paul?
Yeah, as well as IT to determine basically the system capabilities, if it can do that. But that does sound like a kind of a good compromise, because I as soon as Chris made that comment, yeah, that popped into my head that could be a shocker for some people. So we'll look into that to see if, yeah, we could possibly just have the late fees accrue to 1 quarter services.
Okay, and then we could maybe at least find out the logistics if that's something that's possible by the next board meeting.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Do we have any numbers on kind of the current utilization of the program? I mean, do we have a notion of kind of where we stand on people taking advantage of the COVID relief?
Yeah, so the very first round of relief that went out, it totaled about almost $200,000. The second round was right around 100,000. This third round that's been open for the entire quarter has accumulated approximately 94,000, and that's like through today. So it's continued to come down a little bit.
Is there any way we can identify customers that still have outstanding balances that did not pay? I mean, I know we always do, but I think what Nick and I were trying to say is that, like, all of a sudden fourth quarter we take it away and then it accrues late fees on all the unpaid balances that they had prior to now. It sounds like a mess, kind of, to be honest. How do we do that? Or do we have customer service go in and say, we're going to call everybody that waived a late fee or got a reduced rate because of the COVID-19, and then try and get them on some sort of payment plan? It sounds monumental, really.
It is.
I don't know.
But that's what our temporary customer service reps have been doing. We've had one that was specifically doing collection services and helping to get people set up on payment plans. And from what I understand, the customers have actually been very appreciative of the district allowing them to pay their bill in that manner.
Paul, and do you recall how many customers have taken advantage of this program?
I don't have actually the total number of customers, and I would have to assume that there's repeats. So yeah, we could go back and look at that, though.
If I recall, it was between 100 and maybe 200, so it's not a massive number to actually be able to physically contact some of them or all of them. But we'll check it out.
Well, as of the this third round, it looks like a total of 540 applications were filed.
Oh, okay. So that's getting up there.
Yeah.
I guess we're all in agreement, but we realize that there's some things that need to get worked out. And we don't want anything retroactive for the first 3 quarters of the fiscal year.
I hear that, and we'll bring an update back at the next meeting.
Okay.
With some ideas.
Can you guys bring some numbers to the budget retreat on this, and kind of where we stand and how it's impacting the budget? I'd imagine it's probably something in there, but
Well, I can tell you right now, as of today, based on the late fee waivers, the last 3 quarters, as well as the relief plan, the total revenue impact's been about $570,000.
Okay. Anything else on related to COVID? Okay, I've got a few more things to go through here. Power Resiliency Grant, and good news from our grants and equipment repair departments. we were recently awarded a $200,000 grant from California OES, Office of Emergency Services, for power resiliency, and in this case at 2 sewer pump stations, 2 standby generator sets going to the Upper Truckee and the El Tahoe pump stations. And this was a 100% grant, so no match requirement. And so props to Lynn and Cliff Bartlett for putting together the application, and NATA Engineering, who will incorporate these into our big 5 pump station improvement projects. Next, city manager meeting, and I had a meeting planned last week with Joe Irvin, the city manager, and this ended up getting rescheduled to next week. So I think more to come on that. But we did connect on a number of issues, and earlier this week, and one of these was to schedule a meeting with our with the city council and our board member liaison, which is Chris Cephalou. We used to have these what we call 2x2 meetings, 2 council members and 2 board members. And after some legal review on this, because of the general ongoing nature of those meetings, we think it's best to have just one representative from each agency attending, along with Joe and myself, so for better compliance with open meeting laws. So if that's good with the board, I'll work with Director Cephalou, who is our city liaison, and put something on the calendar with the city this month or next. And I expect Tammy Wallace will be the city representative. Are we good with that?
I think I'm fine with that.
Yeah, that's
good.
awesome.
Okay, great, thanks, Chris. And before I move to the last item, Tahoe Keys, I wanted to mention one more thing that I heard about earlier this week. I wanted to mention Mary Lou Mossbacher, who passed away over the weekend. And Mary Lou was on our board for 21 years, from 1990 to 2011. And she was known as the grandmother of the district. So fantastic lady. Hope you had a chance to hopefully see her or visit her farm, or maybe your kids did over the years out at on Grass Lake Road. And so I've worked with Mary Lou ever since I got here in '92, and she was quite a strong, intelligent, and pragmatic lady, and really a fierce advocate for the district and for the ratepayers. And we'll really miss hearing her voice. So I've been working with Shelley, and we've developed a press release, and we're in communication with the family on the release of that. And Mary Lou, thanks for all that you have done for us. So sad news there, and maybe look for that press release coming out soon. And so that brings us to the last item on Tahoe Keys Water. And,
John, I'm going to recuse from both the Tahoe Keys Water, because I'm on the board of Tahoe Keys, and then also the closed session items deal with labor negotiations, and I have a couple of nephews that work for the district, so I'm going to recuse from both of those discussions. So with that, I think those are the only remaining items on the agenda, so I will be signing off.
Thank you, Dave.
Certainly.
Thanks, Dave. Okay, Tahoe Keys Water, lots going on there. You might have seen in the papers. From the district standpoint, we met with the Tahoe Keys and their consultant last Friday, and went through a lot of different things. We received an update on their well situation, on their from their engineer, especially their facilities planning efforts, both short-term and long-term. And we also talked about their irrigation restrictions that are planned. So I'll kind of go through those things in more detail. And as to their wells, again, they have 3 wells total. One of those is already off due to uranium, and we expect the second to be turned off at some point this month by state order, also due to uranium. So that'll of course leave them with 1 well, which would be insufficient to meet their normal summer demands. So they're looking at a number of things. They're looking at actually adding a uranium treatment system to one or perhaps both of those wells. This could take some time, 3 to 6 months. So it would, we're still trying to figure out what to do during the summer season. And their summer water use spikes significantly, really significantly all summer, mostly due to irrigation, but also just more visitation to the Keys overall. So the Keys, it looks like they are pursuing an intertie with Lukens on 15th Street, and this looks like probably their best option in the short term. Lukens has a new treatment system going online in just a few weeks, and so they could provide perhaps 500 gallons per minute or more to the Keys fairly quickly. This intertie construction would include about 500 feet of pipeline extension to connect Lukens and the Keys at 15th Street. And I talked to Jen Lukens. She's been in touch with Hain to complete that construction. They haven't come to a complete agreement with the Keys, is my understanding, but I think this would be, perhaps a 2-week construction process. Kind of back on the district side, we are making some adjustments at a few of our wells and booster stations that would help us increase our flow capacity at that intertie. So we have an 8-inch intertie with Tahoe Keys. It's on Tahoe Keys Boulevard, right before that entrance, just past Michael. And while we have an 8-inch intertie, we are flow limited there due to low pressures in the Y. So we're still trying to figure out what we can supply to them and for what period of the day and for what period of time. So we're really looking to provide perhaps 500 gallons per minute is one target, but we're not sure we can do that 24 hours a day. We have more field testing to do in coordination with the Keys, and we're planning to complete that again in the next couple of weeks. And with no storage in the Tahoe Keys, this water service over the course of a day and meeting those hourly peaks is quite a problem. So the Keys is also looking at adding storage, but that's going to take some time, perhaps 3 to 6 months, converting an existing storage unit to a potable water storage system. And the Keys also has some interest in consolidation, and so I'm planning to do some preliminary work on this with our staff and with Gary over the next few weeks, and I'll keep the board up to date on this. I think one last item is the element of water restrictions in the Keys. And I'm sure you know and have seen this or heard about this. They're looking to add a complete moratorium really on landscape irrigation this summer. And homeowners are talking about pumping water directly from their properties, from their backyards, from surface water. So the Keys is actually, they're concerned about that and cross connection issues. And the district continues to get more calls from landscapers wanting to fill water trucks on the district system and then truck that water over to the Keys and, for landscape irrigation. So concerned about this from the district perspective. So I wanted to have some discussion here today about potentially doing that, working with landscapers to fill these trucks for irrigation. So speaking more to that issue, our admin code currently allows this. A water truck is about 2,000 gallons. I don't know how many water trucks we're talking about, but generally the volume would be relatively low. So, I think our system can handle this at some specified hydrant location that we would identify. But we've talked about this in-house, with staff. We think it's problematic in a number of ways. Trucking water from our system to the Keys for landscaping, while our customers are conserving water, it would be going to the Keys where I don't think there's really much of a conservation program there. There's no meters, there's lots of turf. And
hey, John.
I don't think, yes.
Yeah, I was just gonna jump. I am adamantly opposed to any trucking of water to landscaping the Keys. As you continue to go forward, adamantly opposed for so many different reasons, many of which you've already highlighted. But just the idea we're gonna add for no other reason than we're adding vehicles miles traveled of heavy duty trucks onto our roads, in which every direction from the TRPA to the city to the state is looking us to reduce that so that people in the Keys can water turf lawns on fill, I'm adamantly opposed.
So, I'm going to address this from the happy hour crowd comments. This is a very hot button issue that I've been hearing a lot about. I'm hearing that there's covert meetings. I've heard people saying they're going to take it from the channels, and I think it's like you said, I think it's really problematic. I mean, I think there's a lot of, the houses don't have backflow devices. But I think it's something that needs to be addressed because the homeowners, I think, for the most part, they want to continue to irrigate, and just like John said, they don't have meters out there and they don't have a lot of conservation. They're not invested in conserving water. And it seems like the thing that really got everybody's attention, I never heard anybody say anything about the fact that their wells were contaminated, but when it was the irrigation, I got all kinds of input.
Yeah, I provided some ideas to the Keys about how, if they wanted to do these landscape irrigation trucks, that the Keys itself could perhaps accommodate that. There are wells that are shut down due to uranium. I mean, that water in those wells could be used for irrigation. Go to those wells, fill a truck, and they could do their rounds if the Keys wanted to do that. So, I'm just concerned.
To be honest as well, this is a much more commercial enterprise. The idea we're filling this commercial role for people for ornamental items makes me incredibly uncomfortable. Again, I'm adamantly opposed to this as an idea on every level. I mean, because this isn't health or safety. This isn't a shower. This isn't your drinking water, your toilet, any of those things. We wouldn't be having this conversation. But again, for all the reasons we've discussed, we're looking to do a commercial activity as the district for ornamental decoration on people's properties. And I get it. They want that. But there's lots of reasons I think that's inappropriate for a role for the district to begin taking on. There's commercial interests they could reach out to. I've done these on my own large scale projects, resort type things. There's other things you can pursue. For the district to get into this type of business just, again, seems inappropriate.
Any other, I guess I would ask if there's any other thoughts from the board, but I also would kind of like Gary to weigh in on our admin code related to this issue. Gary, maybe you want to chime in regards to that.
Can you hear me, John?
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, well, John and I have talked about this, and I've talked with Tim as well. Right now, your admin code allows meters to be placed on a fire hydrant and on filing an application to have that meter installed and allow use of the water by the applicant. There isn't any restrictions in the admin code on what the water can be used for. Historically, I think we've seen that water used just primarily for construction-related purposes prior to getting a connection made so that they can use that water and have it available during construction. There is an out, but it's basically it's an emergency or other similar situation that the district can restrict the use of issuing these types of permits for fire hydrant meters. But absent that, as it's written now, the district, that applicant makes the application, the district is obligated to provide water to them. If the board wants to change this, we certainly can, and put some other restrictions on it if the board would like. And I think that's what, when John and I were talking earlier, that's what we're trying to flesh out today, to see what the all the board members thought about this. And then if we could get some direction as to what you'd like to see, we could craft something, bring it back to your mid-April meeting. And if that was, and it'd be an amendment, it'd be an ordinance to amend the admin code. And then that would take effect 30 days after adoption. But that would be the formal way to handle it, if that's the board's pleasure. And we certainly, I think, talking to John and Tim, everyone understands the the public perception issue from the district standpoint of your customers being on conserving water, subject to conservation requirements, without any control, and then having the water taken and used in whatever manner someone wants for their landscaping. So that's why I think John's trying to make sure we get a good feeling from each of you as to what your pleasure is.
Just a kind of a comment. So we tightened down the code, and it basically says, hey, you can only use this for like construction type activities, etc. You can't use it for landscaping or non-potable water purposes, that kind of thing. And I guess I just anticipate it being one of those issues, not to use a term used in the carbon world, but leakage, where basically you clamp it down here, then all of a sudden Douglas County is providing the water, and these trucks are then traveling even further and creating more VMTs because they're getting the water for some other water district that does allow it. So I guess, I don't know, I think we got to be aware of some of the other cascading effects that may happen if we get into clamping it down. And anyway, I agree with you, Nick. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. We running a bunch of trucks down there just to keep the grass green. And but I think the other thing is just anticipating people pulling water out of the lagoon or whatever. I don't know. It's just it's sounding like it's quite a mess.
Yeah.
The idea that you could I just want to add one quick point. The idea that homeowners are going to be able to provide something into the water where they could start to just take surface water out is not going to happen. I can tell you what it is, and lots of people on this call know what it is to get a water use permit on the lake like that. It takes a lot more than a smile, and these people simply are not going to get that. None of them. I can say that definitively.
I don't think anybody, I think a lot of people are not talking about, I think they're talking about covert actions. I think they're talking about.
Right. But again,
to pop in the middle of the night,
I would say those things will go on, but like the fact people are going to do things against the law or do things that are counter to everything that we as a district have been implementing within our ratepayers, I'm not going to support anything, because people will do kind of incorrect, immoral actions that we should somehow bend who we are to that will. I object to that as an idea. I think what they're asking us to do is counter to everything in the district we've done. From a ratepayer's perspective, to the people who talk in the community, I think they're going to see it the same way. It's really it's a difficult ask, and I'm very supportive of changing the admin code.
John, getting back to if Lukens is able to provide them, do an intertie and provide them with water, would they still have their irrigation, for ornamental purposes? Would they have that, would that stay in place? Or is Lukens going to be able to supply them with enough water pressure that they wouldn't put that in place? Or do you even know?
It's probably, I think they're always going to need some kind of water conservation, some kind of irrigation restrictions. Even within the key system, they have kind of distribution issues where they have, water from one side can't effectively make it all the way around to the other side. So they have some distribution system issues, and how much Lukens can provide when at their intertie, I think will obviously help alleviate that. If we can expand what we can supply at our intertie, that'll alleviate their landscaping, their irrigation restrictions. If they had storage, that'll help. I'm just not sure how much of all of that can occur, before this summer, May. It's right around the corner. So I think there's going to be an interim period here where it's going to be very tight. And then as these pieces come together, there'll be more water available generally. And I would add there, it is possible to Shane's point. I think I've talked to Jen about this. I think they may be open to having those landscaping trucks fill up in the Lucan system. So that's not sure if that's finalized or not, or exactly where that's at, but that is, I think, a potential for other water agencies and maybe even other private wells to accommodate these landscaping trucks. But again, we can only do what we can do.
Mm-hmm.
And Shelley, she's been working with the Keys and others on water conservation programs. Actually, Shelley, is there anything you would like to add to this discussion at this time?
Yeah, I have quite a few concerns about supplying irrigation water for the Keys, just an area dominated by grass, like with what Nick said, that our customers have prioritized and really invested extensively in water conservation over the last 15 years. Since 2007, we've offered a really comprehensive conservation program with enforced watering days and appliance and leak rebates and a turf buyback program and house calls and outreach and education. And that costs money to the tune of around $200,000 a year. Thankfully, we have Lynn. She's offset that cost by bringing in 1.2 million in grants. But we've also invested heavily in our meter infrastructure. We've invested 22 million. 8.5 million of which was funded by grants, and that investment was also in the name of conservation. As customers now pay based on use, and we actively alert customers of leaks. And so, with both those efforts, we've reduced our water production by 20%. And I have concerns with allowing contractors to fill up water tanks at a cost of, it's so cheap. Our current program, the permit fee is $150, and then you pay $1.62 per cubic foot, which means it would cost you less than $3 to fill up a 2,000-gallon truck. And like we talked about, traditionally contractors paid these fees for new construction. It wasn't set up for them to then sell our water at much higher rates to irrigate properties outside of our service area. So, is that fair? Is that fair to our customers who have invested so much in our system? So I have been working with the Keys. I met with the Keys, Tahoe Resource Conservation District, and TRPA last week or the week before. TRPA has some funding for outreach funds. TRCD is currently applying for a grant with TRPA on trying to help convert grass area in the Keys to more native landscaping to try to capture runoff and decrease nutrients from getting into the lagoons and promoting the growth of aquatic invasive species. And we're involved, right now, all of our conservation programs are available for Keys customers as well. So I'm working closely with them to try to help promote a conservation message. And in that sense, I want to support the Keys, and I really think the best way for us to do so is by continuing to make adjustments to our system to maximize the amount of water we can provide through that intertie, and then to just be available to help with their providing consistent outreach messaging. Yeah, so just a little background on where we're at with conservation, something that we've invested in so much over the last 15 years.
Yeah, thanks, Shelley. And there are some meters, commercial meters in the Tahoe Keys, and I think they're looking at maybe adding a few more. And we're also working with the Keys they can install those meters, and as a test case, use our automated meter infrastructure system to see how well those work, see how much flow is being used or lost, perhaps through leaks. So we're working with the Keys, the water company, the Property Owners Association on a number of levels. I guess what I'm hearing, I think what I'm hearing as a consensus from the board is that we come back at the next meeting with some changes to our administrative code to address this issue.
Well, before we get all excited, and this is, at this point, it's all speculation. Now, I know it's important to plan ahead for possible scenarios that will come into play. However, right now, this is all speculation. We don't know. I agree with Nick. We don't want water trucks driving all over town. And I don't have the same affection for vehicle miles traveled as he does. And I agree with him anyway. However, we don't know what's going to happen. And at this point, we should be prepared to do something, but I don't know that we necessarily have to have an exhaustive discussion and make sure that we've changed our administrative code when it may not be necessary, because I heard also Lukens is trying to provide that intertie. We have an intertie. This is a one-off deal, right? I mean, they're having problems with their wells. I mean, let's look at the bigger picture and decide. I mean, obviously annexation may come down the road whether or not we like it. So we should be at least prepared for that. And, you know, as far as the conservation goes, I agree with Shelley. We've done a lot to help people not spend so much money on water. But if I lived in the Keys and I owned some grass and I wanted to water it, I'd find a way. And I'm just saying that's what human nature does. And whether it's against the law or not, you know, nothing's going to stop you from plopping a pump down in the channel, running an extension cord out and a piece of PVC pipe to your grass. So, I mean, people will find a way if that's what they want. Education will help. But at this point, we're having this huge discussion on something that may not even happen. So my point is, let's just wait and see where it goes. And then we can take action fairly quickly if we have to do something. And not spend any more time on it for right now, because we got other things we got to do.
I just wanted to say that we're getting landscapers calling us quite often for the past 3 weeks. And, you know, we need to have some direction to tell them yes or no. And if it's no, we really should have our administrative code be in compliance with that decision. I think that's kind of what the thought process is.
Well, how would that work? I mean, let's look at that just for a second, just to break it down. So a guy comes up, fills a truck. What's he do? Spray it on the lawn? I mean, is that what they're going to do? Is people are going to pay them to come once a week and spray water on their lawn? I mean, is that what they're thinking? Because I'm not actually seeing that as being a very plausible solution to watering your lawn.
I believe.
Or is this for the big open areas that they want to try and keep green enough to make them look like they're not high deserts?
Yeah, and I think of the Tahoe Keys Property Owners Association. I mean, I guess if they approach us and asked us for this, that might be different, or a little bit different conversation. But we're getting private landscapers and folks with water trucks that are, I think, probably want to just fill these water trucks and, yeah, spray lawns, or perhaps hand irrigate, which would be better. But I mean, I don't exactly know how many trucks we're talking about or what the irrigation plan is, but I guess that's what I'm envisioning.
Maybe I can provide a little bit of an example. During the last drought in the Santa Barbara area, there were trucks filling up from as far away as, you know, I'm going to say 30 miles or more, and bringing them in and watering. Some were watering lawns, but most were watering established shrubbery and trees to make sure they didn't die. But that's what I saw occur during the last drought in the Santa Barbara area. So I'm kind of envisioning from what's being described as the same thing happening here. I'm not sure if everybody's going to water their lawns, but certainly I think it sounds like they're going to want to water, you know, their other types of landscaping. So it's not like it has happened before.
Right, at the Tahoe Keys board meeting on March 11th, the board approved and adopted this emergency rule, which bans all outdoor irrigation from starting April 1st of this year through July for now. So, yeah, it's just a question of we're getting a lot of calls from landscapers, and what do we tell them about these water trucks?
John, if you want, I can help a little bit. I'm the one, this is Chris. I've been the one receiving the phone calls from the contractors. A couple weeks ago, I received a call from one gentleman wanting to fill up the water truck to spray lawns and also irrigate bushes. And that one landscaper itself had 40 different customers that he wanted to try to provide water for. So that's 40 different customers, probably 3 times a week filling up a water truck. And since yesterday, I've received 4 more different calls. People up here with water trucks being asked if they can provide water to the Keys customers. So you're looking at quite a few people. I've even received calls where people are wanting, homeowners are actually looking at renting trailers with water tanks on the back to take care of their lawn, their landscaping, and also neighbors around them. So we are getting quite a few calls, and they are looking to start and have some kind of answer, preferably now. So I don't know if that helps, but that's a little background of what I've been receiving.
Hey, Chris, can you hear me?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Cuz. I need to just add to that. I know you've been getting calls, and I have another 6 calls myself that I've gotten in the last 2 weeks. And just add one more. Most of them been landscapers. One was a pool service, though, and they do the hot tubs. And they wanted to do the same thing, fill up a water truck, so when they clean the hot tubs out, they can refill the hot tub. That's all.
So with a dozen people or so landscapers already calling and inquiring, and one landscaper having 40 customers, you can kind of do some math there and figure that you're probably talking at least 100 customers or more by the time this is done, 3 times a week, roughly, or more.
Well, I think there's 1,200, yeah, and there's, I think 1,200 properties in the Keys. Just
There's 1,500.
1,500?
Yep.
What's the closest fire hydrant to the Keys? Right there, huh?
I really got to jump back in. We've spent, to Shelley's point, $22 million metering people. We have people throughout this community that got rid of their lawns, who've changed their vegetation, who have done all this because of the education and the direction of the district. Shelley led that effort. She taught our children. She's been on the radio. I would hear her multiple times every single day, reiterating the point about water conserving, the different things we're doing as a district. Shelley, I told you, you're my favorite local celebrity. But with that, we can now, the idea that the district is now going to start selling water to landscapers to start to irrigate the lawns in the Keys is so inconsistent with that messaging, was so inconsistent with what we told our community and asked them to do, and many of them have done it. And so to do this now, I think, is a slap in their face. I'm sorry, that's the way I see it.
Okay, well, I disagree slightly because this is sort of an emergency situation. Now, these people that own the water trucks are trying to make a buck off of a problematic situation. However, they're saying no water for their irrigation, 0. We've never said no water for our irrigation, and we expect our customers to do it responsibly. This is a little bit different. And what I'm saying is, if I owned a house in the Keys, and I don't, and I wanted to keep my trees from dying, although they probably wouldn't die because the water table's like 4 feet down, I'd still want to have the ability to do it. And we should be there to help them figure out a way to fix it without saying, no, you can't take our water because we put in meters. And I mean, the people that are going to buy the water from us, if that's the case, would end up, I mean, we could adjust it so that there's a little bit different price structure or something to that nature. But at the end of the day, this is like I said, it's a one-off. It may last a while, but it's an emergency. So we're not talking about this going on
Right,
forever.
but
We're talking about this going on long enough to help them get through this and figure out how to fix it.
I've lived my whole life, and I've had many emergencies, devastating ones, and I'm sure everyone in this meeting has also had emergencies. None of them were grass related. None of them. That's not an emergency. That's the misuse of the word emergency. Your landscaping, your turf dying is not an emergency. We could go through this community. We could go 2 blocks from here, and I'll show you emergencies, but that's not one. Again,
well, that may be that's your opinion, though. See, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
I respect your opinion, and I agree. It's probably not an emergency to me either because I don't have very much grass, but it might be to someone else. Because it's not like you have to limit it. It's just no, you cannot.
I think I've made my point clear. Or, you know, I respectfully disagree, Chris. I'm not trying to be hostile, but I really think it stands in contradiction to everything we've done as a district. And not that I think it blatantly stands in contradiction to everything we've done as a district.
May I add one other thought that I haven't heard come up in the discussion today? John mentioned earlier that we've been looking at the capacity of our system to be able to provide the water that the Keys is looking for, the 500 gallons a minute during the peak hours, so like the daytime hours. And one of the concerns that I've had about the idea of supplying water to the landscapers is that they're going to want that water at that same time of day. And so, you know, just functionally, where do you send them in our system to fill those water tanks? That's not going to have a negative impact on our ability to serve our customers, their domestic supply, and the Keys Water Company, the 500 gallons they're looking for at the same time. So it gives you that shift from normal nighttime irrigation of lawns and things to a daytime when we're at peak usage.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Thanks, John. I guess I have a thought maybe to get us moving on. I think from this item is next time I can bring forward this as an action item. I think we can bring forward some alternatives for board discussion and action next time. Does that sound doable?
Yeah, and we're not going to do anything in the next 2 weeks anyway, correct?
Right.
As far as like letting water trucks fill up.
Yeah, I would put this on hold for anybody inquiring pending board action.
And I think Julie's point is probably the avenue we should take, is that it's a whole bigger picture than just, okay, it's about irrigation but it's also about the efficiency of our own system and being able to provide water to the community.
Right, we'd have to look at what location and when. I mean, maybe there'd be restrictions on time of day that they could fill a water truck at some location. I'm not sure what a good location is that's very close to the Keys right now, because that's where kind of our worst water situation is. But I think we'll give it some more thought. Hearing the different comments from the board today, I think we can go back and come back on the 15th with some more information, with some ideas for board input and vote.
Okay.
Okay. That's all I have. Thanks, Kelly.
That's it.
John?
Good conversation.
What's up, Paul?
I know we beat this one pretty good too, though, but I was hoping to circle back real quick to the late fee waiver, because I was able to get some information for some other district staff, and they were able to confirm that yes, we can apply the late fee to just 1/4's service charges. So if we send the bills out this April, the late fee would only apply to the January billing if it was late, if it has not been paid.
Oh.
So yeah, I just wanted to see if that was our understanding, because at one point, Kelly, you said I believe you said you didn't want any of the penalties applied retroactively at all, which would mean that there wouldn't be a first penalty until July if the quarterly payment that goes out in April isn't paid by June 30th.
That is what I was thinking. I don't know. But I know circling back, I mean, what is everybody else's thought? Do they think just the January the billing that went in January, do you think that it's okay to have retroactive late fees on that one?
I would say it would be hard to do that. I mean, because we waived them. If we could do it on the one after that, I mean, I was more asking how we unwind it. Sounds like Paul has a way to unwind it. So, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, originally, like, just as you said, Paul, my thought was that everything up until, you know, through the March 31st, that there would be no late fees and we would go forward.
If that's the case, then at the next board meeting, there will be a consent agenda item to waive the fees again for the bills that go out in April. So you will see it one more time. And then what we can do then, because that gives us 3 months to get some messaging out to the customers to basically have them prepared for late fees possibly showing up in July.
That sounds fair.
Okay, we'll do that.
Okay, so we've got, you see the future and past meetings, and then now I guess we're all going to sign off on our computers and we'll call in for closed session.
Hey, Kelly.
Yeah.
I didn't get an email with the closed session number. If someone would either shoot me a text or an email with it.
Okay, coming out of closed session with nothing to report, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.